evening and welcome once again to Gaming Under the Influence. I'm Mike here with Alex, coming to you guys from GreenDragonCVR in Woodbridge, Ontario to talk to you again about video games.
Oh yeah.
How the hell are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm surprisingly doing really well. Thanks to your recommendations in video games. How are you doing?
I'm not bad. Happy to be back fucking making some recordings, talking about games.
It's been a while.
It's been a couple of weeks.
And a hot minute, as they'd say.
I've been gushing about this one for a few weeks before.
You have been talking about this game for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And for the unaware, it is Evil West. But anyways,
West, yeah, that's
you
what
have been talking about it as like the fucking one of the big games coming out at the end of this year. And I'll be honest, I wasn't even going to play it. I was like, yeah, it looks cool. No, honestly, it looked cool. And I was like, I don't know, maybe we'll see. Whatever. Anyway.
It's too particular. You know, what is it, right? Like, yeah.
Right. But ended up starting it, and I haven't been able to put it down. So...
Me too. It's fucking fun, buddy.
Maybe once in a while, you do know.
Yeah, maybe every once in a while, somehow I manage to have an opinion that's correct. It's a strange occurrence. We're all aware of this. But without further ado, I guess we're here to present to you the Evil West episode, November 2022. Fucking probably the last big game we're interested in this year.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, other than Crisis Core, which is really a remake of a PSP game, not to detract from it, but this is an original.
This is it. This
title,
is 2022.
A new IP. This is
its capstone.
Yep. That's
so.
I agree.
Yeah, man, and I think it's a fine one. It's a fine way to top off the year, if you ask me. Where to even start with this game, man? Like. Firstly, there's the fact that it's an original IP from, I don't think, you might call them an independent team, but I think in the 2010s, they were purchased by a giant media conglomerate, most companies of that size have been at this point in time, which is a disappointing turn. Something we talked about in our last episode was the anti-consolidation trend in Kojima and FromSoft there, so.
Oh, yeah.
This is the opposite. But, what can one say? As with Valheim v Rising, this game, what we're starting to see is these instances of smaller teams.
Yep, relatively unknown.
Being handed this fucking bounty of cash from some fucking giant company or a Chinese company, even in the case of V Rising. Some Swedes making a game with Chinese money. Strange situation.
Right.
Yeah, but the outcome is... It's favorable.
It's something good,
From my vantage, it's favorable insofar as it totally... all of these games, what I notice is that they buck all trends.
Yep.
In game design,
they ignore market considerations.
Yes, that's right. They ignore market considerations, and they make a marketing
make their own thing.
That ignoring of the market considerations. So that's an interesting thing. How capitalism absorbs itself, and Disco Elysium is right again, but it's another fucking story, isn't it?
Yeah, in 2022 for a game, coming out that is essentially, this is a third-person melee combat shooter that is like a marriage between God of War, Devil May Cry. It feels a little bit like Remnant. There's a lot of, it's just like a mashup of a lot of things, but it's a straight-up linear, combat action style game with an interesting narrative. There's a lot to really like here, and it surprised me because I wasn't even going to play it. But
that's an excellent description of what this game is, actually. That's an excellent description of what it is. Yeah, third-person action game, with shooting elements, melee combat. Really, its perspective is that most comparable to the recent God of War in 2018.
Yep. Definitely.
Kind of this... arcade-style combat, I guess I would say. Arcade Souls. Maybe that would be the subgenre.
Arcade Souls is a good way of putting it. It's a little hardcore. It's not really button masher, but it's also obviously not as hard as a Souls game.
It's not quite as hard as a Souls game.
They
got difficulty settings, but
it does feel grounded in a one-to-one combat thing where you're not just destroying shit crazy.
I would like to talk about the difficulty for a second. Yeah, that's an interesting point because to me the approach to difficulty is that of a character action game.
Yeah, definitely.
It has a low barrier
levels.
of entry.
Yep. But
a high skill ceiling. In the past we've articulated the difference between a Souls-like and a character action as this difference exactly. That the Souls-like has a really, really high barrier of entry, but its skill ceiling is arguably lower than a character action game. Every weapon in a Souls game has lower fucking potential for incorporating to massive 50 hit combos.
Right.
Than in a character action game. It's just not the same kind of focus, right?
No.
Instead, they probably want you to experiment with builds instead of, just perfecting one over the course of 400 hours. Instead, you'd probably make something else. I'm sure there's players whose experiences are the exact opposite of what I just described, but this is just a general description of how the developers have conceived the systems, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe Sekiro would be the only exception.
Yeah.
if you think about it. But still, it has a really high skill ceiling. I guess that's, a really high a barrier of entry. That's the defining characteristic of the Souls.
Like a Souls, yeah.
Whereas the character action game would have a fucking really low barrier of entry. You could play it on easy or story mode or whatever. But if you want to fucking get awesome at it and really unlock the potential the game has to offer, you have to fucking play it more than once and on these more radical difficulties. Everything from Devil May Cry to Bayonetta is like this, right?
Yeah, I will say I like that all the difficulties are unlocked from the start, even though they tell you they don't recommend that you play it on the hardest because there's, I guess, a new game plus mode.
That's right.
So you would, start a little bit
through it with the upgrades. Actually, that does make sense.
Though being a dedicated, Souls player, such as probably yourself.
Yeah, I'm playing it on hard, actually.
You're playing on
hard.
Right
from the start. I'm playing it from... I didn't try the evil mode, but I didn't want to just go through it on normal. Like a game like this, that it's like a lot of the... I realize, man, just going through the motions doesn't do it for me these days.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point because, like I played it on both to test it out, and because of time constraints, I'm not going to probably finish it on hard, but I did want to experience, and I do feel like it's very balanced in a sense where if you're looking for a little bit of more of a challenge, like that's exactly what it is. Yeah, and you have to also, like you were saying, you can't just shut your brain off and sort of just make it through the combat scenarios. You really have to utilize like every piece of equipment that's given to you, right? To like have a good fucking advantage or come out of a battle with like full health, shit like that, whatever.
The most important thing I realized that it wants you to fucking cultivate is a sense of situational awareness. Like when I'm playing Souls games, I never really, this is an important skill, and when you play bosses that have like multiple enemies targeting you at once, it's always a problem to mentally like understand where the attacks are coming from.
Right.
This game, like, man, every scenario it involves that. So like from the get-go, you got to realize like you got to kite guys around and keep them in your peripheral vision so that you can be attacking one guy, and then when you see the attack coming from the other, you can dodge. And this game, the great thing is that we'll talk about this in a minute, but it doesn't inhibit your movement, like your perceptual like. Yeah, it doesn't inhibit your desire to move with the arbitrary systems like stamina or fucking
lock,
animation locks, right? So
there's no stamina bar, none of that shit.
That's a great thing. So I guess, by way of a summary of what this game is, that in terms of genre, characterizes it pretty well, right? Like what Alex described just moments ago, third-person action game, shooting and melee combat in the fucking style. Like, to me, honestly, the first thing it reminds me of is the original Gears of War.
Yep.
And the combat does recall, of course, God of War 2018.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of, but not for its combat, for many other reasons.
Many other reasons. But yeah, it's like, in a sense, Gears, like you said, but without the cover mechanics, which is cool because it incorporates you to sort of be more active instead of just hiding in it. And I love the original Gears and everything, but
an interesting comparison people have made was Doom, buddy. You played that.
Doom. I wanted to say that too. Yes, it also is very much like Doom because instead of, like I said, instead of being like a cover shooter where you just duck and then, peek out when it's your chance to shoot, it encourages you to sort of be active and run around and smash things and then even get like finishing kills, which give you a little boost of health. So in that sense, it's exactly like resource management like Doom, where it encourages you to be more aggressive, or even like Bloodborne, be aggressive, you can recover some health, right? That sort of back and forth, right?
Sure.
And as
funny
I
thing
guess,
is though, like with Bloodborne, I never found that the health I recovered was nearly worth taking that fucking risk. I don't know. Right? I never once did that work out for me, honestly.
It is if you're like just kind of going through a level, but like in a boss scenario, it's very dangerous.
The only time it's fucking useful is like if you fucking dodge an attack and you like clip through a hit and you just take a little sliver of damage and you're safe to attack. But what the fuck? Most of the time, you dodge an attack, you're just gonna hammer in there in 3 seconds and face tank another one.
Most of the time, you want to try and recover 1, 2, or 3 shots instead of, or else there's no point, right? Like, what do you do? Recover 1 and then you have half a health, like you might just heal or whatever.
Fuck off,
yeah. You know what? I like that they like sort of tease you with that idea. Like,
me too.
Ooh, yeah, like
if they made it that if you hit them in like 3 seconds or something, you got your entire health bar back. It seems to me that
it would be worth the risk. Yeah. But you would have to basically hit them the same amount of times.
You just got like a quarter of your health back, and they kill you in 2 hits. It's like, the fuck am I doing here?
It's very aggressive, that game.
Yeah, but anyways, back to this game here.
Back to Evil West.
The comparison to Doom, I think you just said resource management. That's a perfect way to characterize its relation to Doom. That's probably what it draws on in that regard. Lots of other people have said this. Fuck, man, I'm totally behind this characterization of the game. And as for like why it's so awesome, though, I think personally it's safe to say it falls within that category of like PS2 era inspired games that
Yes.
we talked about before. Wouldn't you say?
Very, very nostalgia. Very much so.
And what does it mean though to say this is a PS2 style game? Like this isn't a genre characterization. I think it's more of like an attitude, a design attitude.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
It's
We're not
more of like
saying
the
it's a genre,
overall, yeah.
Like the attitude the designers had when they went into making this, conceiving this work, right? Like to me, like what that means is, you know,
It's a
honestly,
dated style.
it's
of making-
dated. Certainly, yes, it's dated. But goddamn, I'm a medievalist, bro. That's not a fucking unflattering characterization to me. You know, so like, you know, looking at these kinds of things, like what that means to me, and this isn't even to say something nice about PS2 era developers. It's just a practicality of the era,
Yeah.
bro. This was before information technology as we understood it existed. Okay?
Yeah, it's not a choice they consciously made.
Yeah,
it
no,
was the
it was
reality
just
of the world.
things-
Yeah.
but there was no Twitter. There's no like
Yeah.
fucking
No market
There's no
considerations.
websites to track what people are playing on
Yep.
Steam on mass at any given time, right? There's no ability to communicate with your community. And figure out
Very
the points
little,
as
yeah.
things go live. There's no ability to monetize something after the fact. You know, all of these things. What I think they cultivated was this atmosphere where people had no choice but just to design a game and consider nothing but its intrinsic merit.
Yeah.
Right.
You just had to go with it.
At least to a greater degree than now.
Yep.
You know, the material
yeah.
causality of I guess what that means is, you know, the economic and fucking subjective factors that go into the making of the game, not the game itself, but on the side of the person making it and where it comes from, the stuff on that side of it. It was just more friendly to the design of a game that didn't pay attention to anything other but its own, wherein the designers of that game didn't pay attention to anything
Yeah.
but its quality. What else did you have to pay attention? You couldn't go on Twitter and be like, bro, do you like this system? You know,
That's
go on
the thing.
Reddit and like talk with people.
Yeah,
do a fucking interview with your player base and be like, oh, I guess I'm changing it now, right? Like
you got to think like the potential for that wasn't there. So like
didn't
for
exist.
them making it, like obviously you're making a game for people who are going to play them, but they were also people that you couldn't interact with on a grand scale like that. There was no
absolutely.
Reddit that you could post, you know, a topic and get like a vibe of how people are feeling about it. There was no sort of platform for people to
Of
really
course, of
bitch
course.
out to you and,
And-
and you know, influence what you were making. So you just had to go with what you wanted to make and something that is, you know, its
What the
own
idea called
fucking
for,
thing. Yeah.
well, what the recipe, you know, called for, the recipe
Yeah.
of your concept. And you know, again, like I don't think this is not necessarily to compliment the people making games at that point. It's just to say, like, you know, without the ability to constantly defer to outside motives like
Yeah.
pleasing your player base, like avenues for monetization,
yeah.
beyond the initial sale and all of these things, like, you know, the only thing before you to work with is the
Just
quality
try to
of your
make
concept,
the best
right?
fucking thing you could possibly make so that people will like it when it releases. That's it,
right, yeah.
right?
That's
there was
right.
no, you know, hey, we're gonna open a store on the game and sell you skins and do this and
I think, like, you know,
God. Community.
I talked before about how, like,
Player
something that somebody conceives, a work of art, if you will, in somebody's fucking mind, when they conceive it, like, the marks of its quality are these fucking characteristics of, like, proportion or integrity and harmony and fucking fitness. You know, it has to have, like, its parts shouldn't just be there. At least, you know, and we're using these terms in reference to the game itself. Are its parts there, like, in good proportion? You know, is it like a fucking deformed monstrosity with like one club-like arm and one little T-Rex arm, or is it like a well-formed being, like a movie star, like he's got like a nice chiseled jaw? You know, are the parts proportional, or is it deformed? Like when you look at it, you're like, all right, this is fucking clearly one of its parts. It's like a cancerous growth, just like sprouting out in the direction of something, you know, fucking undesirable and bad for the thing, right? Like, you know, we can consider like modern games. Like I was just playing Ghost Recon Wildlands. I like that game. Don't get me wrong, but you know, you open the fucking menu, bro, and
But
they're like, look at this, buy some stupid shit. Like, man, what is
see
this?
the flaws of
What is
modern
this is like
shit
it's like
baked
it's like the thing has a fucking cancerous like mole on itself.
Yeah.
You know, it's just growing out of it, it's sapping its nutriment and its life, and you're just like, what the hell is this? It's a parasite on the thing, right? It doesn't serve its fucking intrinsic logic. Instead, it's against it. You know, it's there contrary to it, right? So
It's very true, and it's not hard to, you know, look and see the downfalls, you know, to certain even very fucking high rated games that have taken a tumble in the modern day because they've tried to incorporate bullshit that never was a thing in the past, and it's not possible to retain that same sense of
proportion, proportion.
And the integrity, right? Like
that's right, proportion or integrity. I
Everything
think
goes to shit.
Those are practically synonymous, right? And I think the opposite of that is deformity. That's what we could say modern games possess when they fucking what they exhibit when they have these, just these elements which are added that are not only superfluous, but they're positively parasitic upon the fucking quality of the thing, right?
Yeah.
Lots of games have this kind of stuff nowadays. We've just referred to something that we're fond of, an example that it has.
Yep.
Inflicted upon it. Imagine all the examples of things we don't like.
We don't like. Yeah, exactly.
Like most games are just nothing but just fucking hosts for parasites, you might say, metaphorically, right?
Basically a fucking store.
Yeah, they have no integrity. They're like a sick body just covered in leeches,
Which makes a game like Evil West so refreshing to see, and not to take away from the game itself, to just say that they made a fucking PS2 style era game
see
where
to complement the game. That's exactly the point, right? Like what that means is instead of just being something that was designed for the purpose of hosting somebody's ulterior motives, it was designed to have proportion, like integrity, like its parts are all there because in the mind of the developer, ideally, they were there to suit the inner logic of the thing. Like the same way people have two fucking, symmetrical body parts. Like that's why the parts are included here. They comport with the order and fucking inner logic of the fucking game as it was conceived by its designer, And they also have harmony, these parts. Like this seems like a fucking slightly overlapping point, but the emphasis is slightly different. Like the parts are not fighting each other.
No.
Right? It's no longer that like, and this might not even fucking, this isn't even necessarily about like monetization or anything like that. Like I'm thinking of something like Red Dead Redemption 2. When I think about something like this, like when you're fucking out there in the world and there's these like story missions that have character development and a trajectory, and then there's these other things which are just, they seem totally tangential. You could spend like double the amount of time you spend on the actual narrative just fucking wiping your horse's ass or whatever.
There's a little bit much. We've talked about that.
There's no fucking harmony between the parts, right? Not only are they disproportionate, but there seems to be like even if they were proportionate, they're at war with one another. They have conflicting ends, right? They're clashing. This game probably doesn't have the opportunity to incorporate as many conflicting elements because of how determinate and on track it is, right?
Yeah, it's definitely refreshing. Literally how on track it is, because you feel like you're playing a game before they invented open world games. Like it's so linear that it's refreshing. I'm not even kidding. I know it sounds ridiculous, but like it's just so on rails that it's nice, right? And what's another thing, and I think we talked about this a little while ago, it's just a random kind of off point, but it has very distinct cutscenes that are like CGI cutscenes that don't look like they're in engine. You know what I mean? That was something that I had said from back.
They aren't in engine. You're right.
Aren't in engine, right? They look like pre-rendered CGI cutscenes, which is like a thing of the past that we haven't seen. But like,
I'm down.
It's just kind of a little bit of an added nostalgia trip to see that kind of thing come back. And I don't think it's in engine. It looks very different. It has to be
for sure. You know what, buddy?
Pre-rendered shit, right?
That's a fucking
Remember the
great
Final
point.
Fantasy days from like.
That's
8,
a great point.
7, fucking 9.
That's a great point. It has these fucking pre-rendered cutscenes. And I was just fucking going on about this concept of parts working together in harmony and shit like this, but fucking how's that for harmony, man? Like they managed to fucking, like, you got literally a series of interlocking parts that, not even necessarily, they're not even game parts. They're exterior to the game, but they serve its fucking purpose, right? Like everything is a cohesive thing. They're not willing to fucking, implement like trendy game design for the purpose of for its own sake against the inner logic of their work.
They'd be dead in the water if they tried, because how would you like, this game is unique because it doesn't follow the market. If it became like a Lawbreakers or like a fucking, what was that game, Bleeding Edge? That game was tragic, because I remember watching the interview where the developers were like, we were originally going for a totally different thing, but then we got some feedback and we switched gears, and it's like, well, you guys have no idea what you want to make. This game is not going to be successful. And it wasn't. Spoiler alert. So
no, for sure.
It's part of the game's success is that it could be made under these conditions. It could just be what it needed to be and what it wanted to be, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think in addition to those characteristics of of integrity and fucking proportion. The thing just has the fitness of its parts, in other words, too. You know, it's not like it's not got anything that it doesn't require it according to its own fucking interior, like fucking designs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think these 2 points are related because, again, it may not be like a compliment to the people making games before the internet that they couldn't rely on the internet for sources of information, and thereby their games couldn't become deformed by those sources. But like, still, like, it's a real consideration, right? Like nowadays, access to information and like, you know, the ability to so closely monitor commercial trends and desires makes it possible for, you know, people who finance a game just be like, dude, make it this way. This is what
just
this
do
is
this.
what is appropriate. This is what'll make us money, right?
This could have easily had a multiplayer component style like Gears of War, and then sold you a bunch of fucking skins and blah blah blah, whatever. And it doesn't even have that. It's just a single player game with co-op multiplayer, which is fine.
Yeah,
you know,
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think to me it has these fucking
awesome
characteristics. That's what makes a PS2 game. It has fucking it has integrity and fucking it has integrity and fitness and harmony amongst its parts, you know.
And it's really just, honestly, like in a more literal sense, it's really just fun to fucking get home and just jump into it, play for a fucking an hour or two, do a couple levels because it's level based, and
man,
you know, it feels good.
That's right. It doesn't
watch some cutscenes, like it's great, man. There's the fuck.
Playing other games,
you know?
like I feel like this element of stress where you got to think about like long-term things, like you know,
character build and like not fucking up your perk selection or whatever have you, right?
Like,
it
definitely is refreshing just to like clock in and you know,
it's good.
Experience the form that the artist conceived, right? Yeah, I do love it, man.
Oh yeah,
the simplicity to the thing, you know. It's so self-contained. Like that's really the best way to summarize it to me, right? I really do like how the guys who made this, they're just interested in exactly what they're fucking making. They're not deferring it all to like commercial or fucking popular consideration in any fucking conceivable way, right? Like the thing has no obvious fucking, you know, inspirator in terms of its fucking, in many of its, in terms of how like everything is brought together, even though all of its parts may have been drawn from something else, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And all of its parts definitely have been drawn from something else. Like this is a game that a bunch of Polish guys made about the American West. You know
right?
I mean?
So funny.
Involving vampires. Like all of the parts are definitely like pop cultural and like drawn from obvious sources. But like the whole idea of using them in this manner is what makes this an interesting thing.
Yep.
Something it feels to me like I haven't seen in a long time. You know?
Definitely well said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not, if you're like listening to this on a podcast or whatever, I encourage you to check out, you know, some of the gameplay we put up on YouTube. It's great.
Yeah.
Good indication of what you're getting into, and it's a pretty solid game. It's fucking awesome. You should check it out for sure.
Really is, yeah. Like, you know, and in terms of more like concrete descriptions, like the way the levels are usually laid out is, you know, you got these like giant set pieces in the center. Wouldn't you say?
Every
level has a theme. Like
it always
like
reminded me a lot of like Demon Souls, the remake on the PS5, just looking over like a chasm of shit, and then seeing how there's like, you can kind of clearly see where you're gonna be headed, or like areas that you probably will end up, rather than, you know, like the vast landscape in the background. You can like kind of clearly make out the foreground versus the background, and you do end up taking, you know, some routes that you kind of look around and be like, oh fuck, look how I ended up here. Like it's got that like level design that, for being self-contained, it feels exactly like big, right? And like you're making actual even like Doom and other fucking games.
I think that's in virtue of this fucking smart use of set pieces. You know, and I'm fond of that kind of game design. You know, where it's not, the focus isn't really on the fucking physical properties, quote unquote physical properties of the world as you experience them. It's on the fictional depiction of things. It's like a fucking, you know, it's like a decorated hallway you're going through, like a fun house kind of fucking thing, right? I'm fucking into that, bro. It's the representation that matters, right? Like, and if you can fucking sell me that while I focus on the quality core mechanics that you've devised, there's nothing more that I could ask for, right? And fucking the best thing I like about this is I see the ending. It's in direct reach, even though I've been playing it on one of the harder difficulties. I may or may not go back and fucking play it on New Game Plus on the harder one if I got fucking 10 hours to spare or whatever in the new year, but so I'm happy. Like, I want to finish this, and I've enjoyed it. I would buy an art book if there was one, you know, like I enjoy its fiction and its universe. Like,
definitely really cool shit. Like I said, I wasn't even gonna play it, but I started it up, gave it a shot, and haven't been able to put it down. Really, I think I'm probably gonna go home and play it tonight.
Yeah, man.
The only other thing I've been playing a little bit here and there was Final Fantasy IV, continuing my Final Fantasy slog through all of them, which I don't even want to call it a slog because I love the game. So we'll report on that in another episode. And I wanted to save the disappointing thing for you while we were recording that I've also been playing Warzone, which is Call of Duty's Battle Royale. Well, cool. I'm sorry. Please don't fire me.
Yeah, right.
But
I don't give a fuck. I was thinking about playing Call of Duty too, actually.
Yeah, Warzone's okay.
I like the guns.
Yeah, that's true. Guns.
But fuck,
I like hiding and kind of catching people off guard and murdering them in cold blood and then stealing all their shit and their guns.
I get that.
Anyway.
Man, there's one other thing I fucking forgot that I wanted to get back to was the fact that what makes this game so fun in terms of its combat. And you touched on this before, is that unlike fucking, it has Souls-like elements, and by that I mean it has like iframe based fucking
it does
combat.
Have iframes,
you know?
yeah.
There's hitboxes, and the attack does damage when it connects, in terms of your attack or the enemies.
Yep.
What this
handy
has,
dodging.
That's right. There's dodging. You got to use your iframes to go through attacks. You can zip around the arena and this and that. What it has that Souls doesn't have, or what Souls has that it doesn't, is depending on how you want to look at it, is animation locking. Stamina bars, these things that limit your movement. Like I feel like a lot when I'm playing a Souls game, your mind, like intentionally you want to perform an action. You're like, all right, it's time to do this thing.
It punishes you for not being extremely precise with the controls, right?
But even then, doesn't it seem like it inhibits your ability to be precise in an extent?
Fair enough.
It locks you into something, right?
Yep.
Like you want to fucking do something else, but your character is just stuck in this animation. That's the way she goes. I like this because there doesn't seem to be any animation locking to me.
No.
And there's no stamina bar, so your movement is totally unlimited. At least it's only limited by your desire to do or not do something, right?
Yeah.
Your thought to do it or not do it. If you're like, oh shit, it's time to dodge, you fucking dodge.
Yep. Yeah, and I was saying before that it even caught me off guard one time because I was doing like a punch or something, and I immediately like dodged out of it, and I meant to connect the punch and then dodge, but because I inputted obviously the commands right away, and then it doesn't have any sort of animation lock. I did that a few times. Yeah. Where I'd basically try and throw a punch and then dodge, but I would just dodge and not land the punch, and I was like, oh fuck. And, shit like that. But
I like that.
Not even possible in Souls games or right? Because you have animation lock, stamina bars,
for sure,
kinds of things to consider.
I think I've said this before, man, but I love Souls games, of course. They're my favorite fucking kind of games. I would never fucking say that I don't love them, but like one thing I would love to see gone from Souls games is that kind of shit. I want the guy to move as fast as I want him to.
Yeah, fair enough.
It should be hard because the game is fucking moving faster than that, not because I can't, like, shit, I'm fucking locked in.
Yeah, and you're like
2 minute animation.
That 1 second feels like an hour, and you're smashing the dodge button, Bloodborne, or whatever game. But I
hate that.
Yeah, it's very aggravating. I guess Sekiro was kind of
a departure from that. At least
exactly.
Sekiro kept fucking it in a sensical manner. Like in Sekiro,
you could get broken by the stamina gate, but like
there's this,
sort of.
Yeah.
You have to know when
they're still staggering and shit. And like, I realize like in Sekiro, you swing your sword, the R1 attack there. Yep. And like, if the sword hasn't gone too far yet, before it goes to the guy's shoulder, you can still dodge or fucking block. But once he commits to the swing.
Yeah, there was like a part where you get, what it's called?
Where your animation lock.
There was like a
point of no return.
Point of no return. That's what I'm looking for. What?
Yeah.
Fuck.
That's the one.
Damn it. There was a point of no return.
Yeah.
Is the thing I was looking to say.
I wish there was none, though, honestly. I don't care
I see
why
what
it's there. I
there should be.
Don't see how that fucking, I understand.
That's
it makes
fair.
you be more deliberate, like in when you attempt to land.
Careful.
But to my estimation, that just artificially inflates the fucking boss fights in length. Because
a little bit,
you spend half the fight sitting there like, oh shit, I can't attack, right?
No,
like,
you have to back out and recover, right? You sort of have to play that game of...
Elden Ring was fucking intense on that shit, I tell you. The last few bosses in particular, holy fuck.
I believe it.
They were just chock full of these fucking combos where you like... They're full of like false endings.
Oh god!
Like half of the time they'd be 4-hit combos, and you'd be like, all right, it's safe to attack, but then he adds like another 3 hits half the time. So you just spend half the fight wasting opportunities to attack because you're not sure.
Yeah, you're not sure when to go, and then you go and you get fucked.
Yeah.
That's like Souls on fucking hard mode. Like I don't even know.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Come on. I don't know. Like I get why it's there, and then it makes it feel like RNG takes over at some point, and you only succeed because you favorably rolled the combos that time, right? So. I'd rather things were consistent and, you just had as much reactive capacity as you desire and the fight was just fucking hard.
Yeah.
And it feels like that here. Here they throw like a gajillion fucking enemies at you and like 1 or 2 like mini bosses, and you fucking can just your only choice is to just move constantly and
Yeah,
make
you just
sure
have to move. You
don't
move,
get hit.
dodge,
Yeah.
shoot, like just
Yeah.
It's that like Doom sensation of just fucking
For sure.
go in there and fuck shit up, right?
And they have like
Rip and tear.
unlike Souls games, they have like see how the limbs of the enemies are glowing as they attack you. Those are weak
Yeah.
spots. If you pull out your rifle and you shoot them, they'll fucking be staggered and
Yeah.
take,
Oh, and
their
you can
limb will
kick
be
them and
blown off.
cancel their attacks.
You can,
I forgot about that.
Especially when they're glowing, that
Yeah.
indicates a cancelable
Yeah.
attack. Yeah, so there's all
Interesting.
these opportunities to keep the combat flowing, and like the other thing is you can fucking break your combo with a kick.
Yeah.
Right? Or with the shotgun attack or whatever. So that's nice. Yeah. No animation locks. Just doing whatever you want right when you want to do it. I wish Souls games would incorporate that as a final word.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's what
Yeah.
makes the combat so fun here. Iframes and all that fucking shit, but none of the like just debilitating fucking and arbitrary mechanisms that keep you locked into something when I don't think you should be, right?
No, for sure. Yeah,
But,
this game was a pleasant surprise, and I'm happy we got it at the end of this year. It sort of caps it off, and like, I feel like buying copies for people just to like spread the word. Like,
All right.
play this fucking game, you know? I didn't expect it to be what it is, but it's good. To be vague.
It is.
Yeah.
On that note, I bid you all good night. Hope you guys have fucking enjoyed our conversation today, and tune in later this week for more.
Fuck yeah.
Take care of
Play
yourselves.
fucking Evil West.
Yeah, play Evil
Oh,
West.
Yeah.
Do it.